Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Western Flavors. In our last episode, recovery revealed its complicated truth as Amy watched Ty reclaim the life stolen by 4 years of absence. Pride and grief existed simultaneously in ways that defied simple celebration. As Ty handled increasingly complex veterinary cases with growing confidence, Amy found herself both joyful and heartbroken, recognizing what those lost years had cost them both. Her breakdown and honest conversation with Ty revealed emotions she'd been suppressing, and their joint grieving for lost years allowed both of them to acknowledge that recovery doesn't erase loss. Meanwhile, Caleb and Ashley's relationship progressed intentionally through deeper vulnerability, facing community reactions together and building foundation through communication rather than just chemistry. Phoenix's owner collected the fully rehabilitated mare, and Amy experienced the bittersweet success of doing good work that required letting go. The episode ended with Amy and Ty at the construction site processing their complicated week together, agreeing that both pride and grief can coexist, that recovery's triumph and absence's cost are both valid truths. If you're enjoying this season, please hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Quick note before we jump in, I've been using NordVPN and NordPass, and they've been game changers for my online security. NordVPN encrypts your connection so no one can track what you're doing online, and NordPass securely manages all your passwords so you don't have to remember dozens of them. If you subscribe through my link in the description, you'll get a huge discount, up to 73% off on a 2-year plan for NordVPN and 53% off on NordPass. Plus, I'll earn a small commission from your purchase, which really helps support Western Flavors. Alright, let's get into it. Today, private becomes public as Caleb and Ashley make their relationship officially known to family and community. What's been quietly developing in the privacy of her apartment and stolen moments between work now faces the scrutiny of people who remember their disastrous first marriage. Sometimes the scariest part of building something real isn't the private work but the public declaration. Making relationship visible makes it accountable, and accountability is both terrifying and necessary for anything that might actually last. Sunday morning arrived with that persistent, unseasonable warmth that had characterized Alberta's entire autumn. The temperature was already climbing toward 22 degrees by 9 a.m., far too hot for late October. Weather forecasts showed no rain predicted for the next 2 weeks, extending the drought that had meteorologists issuing increasingly urgent warnings about fire danger. But inside Ashley's apartment that morning, attention focused on more immediate concerns. She and Caleb sat at her small kitchen table with coffee, having the conversation they'd been building toward for days. Ashley spoke first, her directness cutting through any possibility of avoiding the subject.
I think it's time we go public. Really public. Not just people seeing us together occasionally, but formally telling your family, being open in the community, claiming this relationship instead of keeping it relatively private.
Caleb absorbed this, processing both the suggestion and his reaction to it. They'd been together for weeks now, spending most evenings at her apartment, building their relationship through careful communication and intentional pacing. But they'd also been somewhat private about it, not hiding exactly, but not advertising either.
You're ready for that? For everyone in Hudson knowing and having opinions about us trying again?
I'm ready, and I think keeping this private is starting to feel like we're hedging our bets. Like we're not fully committed because we're leaving room for failure. If we're really doing this, really building towards something lasting, then we need to be public about it.
She reached across the table, taking his hand.
I want to tell your family formally. Have dinner at Fairfield and actually announce that we're together, that we're building toward real future. Make it official instead of just letting people figure it out gradually.
Caleb felt nervousness churning in his stomach. Making their relationship public meant accountability, meant the community watching their every interaction, judging whether they'd learned from past failures, expecting them to either succeed spectacularly or fail catastrophically without middle ground. It meant his family knowing and caring and potentially being hurt if things went wrong. But Ashley was right. Keeping their relationship semi-private was hedging. If they were genuinely committed to building something real, they needed to claim it publicly.
Okay, let's do it. I'll call Lisa and arrange family dinner for tonight. We tell everyone officially.
The decision made, they sat together finishing coffee and preparing for making their private relationship a matter of public record. Across town at Fairfield, Amy was having her own Sunday morning of significant developments. The phone call came from a potential client, a woman named Margaret, whose horse had developed severe behavioral issues after traumatic trailer accident 6 months prior. Multiple trainers had tried and failed to help. She'd heard about Amy's work with traumatized horses and wanted to know if Amy was taking clients again. Amy hesitated only briefly before accepting the case. Her training practice had been dormant for months while she processed grief and supported Ty's recovery. But Phoenix's successful rehabilitation had proven she was ready to return to this work. More than ready, she needed it. Helping horses heal was part of how she healed herself. Ty found her on the porch after the call, making notes about the new client case.
Taking on work again?
Margaret's horse, severe trauma from accident. Sounds like a challenging case, but I'm ready for challenging.
Ty sat beside her, pride evident in his expression.
You are ready. You've done incredible work healing yourself these past months. Phoenix was proof of that. You helped that mare rebuild trust from nothing.
And she helped me. That's how it works. We heal each other through the process.
They sat together in comfortable silence, both of them rebuilding professional identities that had been dormant or broken. Ty's veterinary practice restoring itself case by case, Amy's training practice returning client by client, both of them becoming themselves again through patient work. Lisa appeared on the porch with news that Caleb had called requesting family dinner that evening. Something in her tone suggested this wasn't casual social invitation. Caleb specifically asked that everyone be there, including Lou if she's available, said he and Ashley have something to share with the family. Amy and Ty exchanged knowing looks. This was the official announcement. Caleb and Ashley were making their relationship publicly known to the family, claiming it formally instead of letting everyone continue just observing its gradual development. Sunday evening found the Fairfield dining room full in ways it hadn't been since before Jack's death. Amy and Ty, Lisa, Lindy, and Lou, who'd driven up from Calgary with Katie specifically for this dinner after Lisa's call suggesting it was important. When Caleb and Ashley arrived together, the nervousness was visible on both their faces. They'd gotten dressed up slightly, not formal but intentional, showing this evening mattered. Ashley wore a simple blue dress that somehow managed to look both sophisticated and approachable. Caleb had actually ironed his shirt, which alone indicated the evening's significance. Dinner conversation flowed naturally through the first courses, Lindy and Katie catching up, Lisa asking Lou about business developments in Calgary, Amy sharing about her new client case, Ty mentioning his growing confidence with Scott's practice. Normal family dinner conversation that felt precious in its ordinariness. But as dessert was being served, Caleb cleared his throat in the particular way that meant he had something significant to say. The table quieted, everyone's attention focusing on him and Ashley.
We wanted to gather everyone together to tell you something officially. Ashley and I are together. Not just casually dating or seeing where things go, we're building toward real future, real partnership. And we wanted you all to know that formally, instead of just letting you figure it out.
He paused, glancing at Ashley, who took over the explanation.
This is different from our first marriage in every way. We were kids then, impulsive, immature, completely unprepared for partnership. We're different now, older, hopefully wiser, definitely more aware of our own issues and patterns.
We're being intentional this time. Slow, communicating constantly, building on lessons learned rather than just repeating what felt good. And we wanted you all to know because you're family, and family should be aware of something this significant.
The silence lasted perhaps 3 seconds before Amy spoke, her voice warm with genuine support.
I'm happy for you both. I've watched you rebuild this relationship over the past weeks, and it's been beautiful to witness. You're doing it right this time. Mature and careful and real.
Agreed. You're both different people than you were 10 years ago. That gives you actual chance at making this work.
Lisa's response carried particular weight given her relationship to the family and her long perspective on both Caleb and Ashley's histories. I watched your first marriage implode spectacularly. You were disasters individually and together, but I've also watched you both grow up in the years since, watched you learn from your failures, develop self-awareness, become people capable of actual partnership. She raised her wine glass and toast. I'm proud of you both, for having courage to try again, for doing the work to become people who might actually succeed at building something lasting. You have my complete blessing and support. The toast was echoed around the table, Lindy and Katie giggling with the particular excitement preteens feel about romance. Even Lou, whose initial reaction had been skeptical concern, softened visibly seeing the maturity with which Caleb and Ashley were approaching their relationship.
I'll admit I was worried when I heard you two were seeing each other again. Your first marriage was such a disaster that trying again seemed like recipe for repeating pain. But seeing you together tonight, hearing how you're approaching this differently, I believe you might actually make it work this time.
The evening progressed into celebration, family genuinely happy for Caleb and Ashley's second chance. Stories were shared, laughter flowed, and the weight that had been sitting on both Caleb and Ashley's shoulders since arriving lifted gradually. Their family knew. Their family approved. Their family would support them through whatever came next. Late in the evening, Lisa pulled Ashley aside for private conversation in the kitchen while others lingered over coffee in the dining room. I mean, what I said. You've grown enormously since your first marriage. But Ashley, going public means accountability. It means this community will watch your every move, expecting either spectacular success or catastrophic failure. Are you prepared for that scrutiny?
I am. And honestly, I think the accountability is good. Keeps us honest. Keeps us working instead of coasting. We can't hide relationship problems from everyone when everyone knows we're together. That external accountability might be exactly what we need.
Lisa studied her for a moment, then nodded with something that looked like respect. You've become wise. That's not something I would have said about you 10 years ago, but it's absolutely true now. The following days brought Caleb and Ashley face to face with Hudson's varied reactions to their officially public relationship. Monday morning at Maggie's for coffee, they encountered the full spectrum of community response. Some people were genuinely happy for them, neighbors who'd known both Caleb and Ashley for years and wanted to believe in second chances offered congratulations and support. These were people who'd watched both of them grow up, had seen their failures and their growth, and chose to hope that maturity might produce better outcomes than youthful impulsiveness had. Others were openly skeptical. Mrs. Henderson made pointed comments about leopards not changing their spots, about people who hurt each other once being likely to do it again. Her skepticism wasn't cruel exactly, just resigned. She'd seen too many people repeat patterns to believe genuine change was common. And a few were outright hostile. Mrs. Rodriguez, whose daughter had dated Caleb briefly after his divorce from Ashley, cornered them near the counter with expression that promised confrontation. "You're really doing this again? Caleb, she destroyed you the first time. Made your life miserable, criticized everything about you, made you feel like you weren't good enough, and you're just going back for more?" The accusation hung heavy in Maggie's suddenly quiet dining room. Other customers were watching now, curious how this confrontation would resolve. Caleb felt his instinct rising to defend or retreat, old patterns from their first marriage, when conflict meant fighting or withdrawing. But Ashley responded before he could, and her response demonstrated exactly how much she'd changed.
You're absolutely right. I did those things. I was cruel and critical, and made Caleb's life miserable during our first marriage. I was an immature, insecure girl who dealt with her own issues by tearing down everyone around her.
She met Mrs. Rodriguez's eyes directly, not defensively, but with genuine acknowledgement.
I'm not that person anymore. I've done therapy. I've failed at enough things to develop humility. I've learned that treating people badly reflects my own problems, not their inadequacy. I can't promise I'll never hurt Caleb again. All relationships involve hurt sometimes, but I can promise I'm committed to treating him with respect and communicating instead of criticizing.
The directness and humility in her response softened Mrs. Rodriguez's hostility slightly. It was impossible to maintain full attack mode against someone who was completely owning their past failures without excuse or deflection. Well, I hope you mean that, because Caleb deserves better than what you gave him before.
He does, and I'm working every day to be better than I was.
After Mrs. Rodriguez left, Caleb pulled Ashley close in the middle of Maggie's, not caring who saw.
The old you would have either collapsed in tears or attacked back viciously. You just owned it, acknowledged what you did wrong, and committed to doing better. I'm proud of you.
Therapy is expensive, but worth every penny.
They laughed together, the tension of the confrontation dissipating. This was what building relationship in public meant, facing criticism, handling conflict, demonstrating through consistent behavior that they genuinely learned from past failures. Midweek brought new development that showed their relationship evolving beyond private dates into genuine life integration. Ashley showed up at the Heartland construction site Wednesday afternoon carrying lunch for Caleb and the crew, sandwiches from Maggie's, and cold drinks that were appreciated in the unseasonable heat. It was the first time she'd joined Caleb at his work site, and the gesture's significance wasn't lost on anyone. During their first marriage, Ashley had viewed Caleb's construction work with barely concealed disdain, seeing it as beneath someone of her social status. Her presence at the site now, bringing food and showing genuine interest in the work, demonstrated fundamental shift in her values and priorities. The construction crew noticed. Jake, who'd worked with Caleb for years, pulled him aside while Ashley was distributing sandwiches.
That's different. The Ashley I remember wouldn't have been caught dead at a construction site. She's really changed, hasn't she?
She has. We both have. That's what gives us actual chance this time.
Watching Ashley interact comfortably with the crew, asking questions about the work, admiring the barn's progress, looking genuinely interested rather than performing interest, Caleb felt something settling in his chest. This was real. This was sustainable. This was a woman integrating into his life, rather than demanding he abandon his life to integrate into hers. That evening at Ashley's apartment, they had one of their weekly check-in conversations, the structured communication they'd committed to as part of building relationship intentionally.
How are you feeling about us going public? Any regrets or concerns?
No regrets. Some anxiety about community scrutiny, but that's manageable. Mostly, I feel solid. Like we're building something real instead of just riding chemistry wherever it takes us.
I feel that too, and I want to talk about future. Not rushing anything, but acknowledging where we're heading.
She took his hand, her expression serious but hopeful.
I see us building toward permanent partnership, eventually living together, eventually marriage, maybe eventually children. I'm not asking for timeline or commitment tonight, just acknowledging that's the direction I see us moving. Is that where you see us going too?
The directness of the question required equally direct answer. During their first marriage, they'd never had these conversations. They just assumed shared vision without actually verifying it, leading to resentment when their unstated expectations didn't align.
Yes, that's where I see us heading. Not immediately. We need more time to build foundation. But eventually, all of those things. Permanent partnership built on communication and respect instead of just passion.
What timeline feels right to you? I don't want to rush, but I also don't want to drag things out unnecessarily, because we're afraid of repeating mistakes.
I think we move in together once Heartland construction is complete and I'm not working 60-hour weeks. That's probably 6 to 8 months. Engagement maybe a year after that. Marriage when we're both certain we've built something sustainable. Children when we've been successfully married for a couple years and feel ready for that level of partnership.
The practicality of the discussion would have felt unromantic to their younger selves, but their younger selves had failed spectacularly. This mature planning, acknowledging desires while being realistic about pacing, this was what might actually produce lasting partnership.
That feels right to me, gives us time to build solid foundation without rushing, and it gives us milestones to work toward instead of just vague someday.
They spent the evening discussing practical considerations, how they'd combine finances eventually, how they'd support each other's careers, how they'd navigate disagreements when they arose. All the unglamorous conversations that actually determined whether relationships lasted past initial passion phase. It felt different than anything they'd experienced during their first marriage. Less exciting maybe, but infinitely more solid. Foundation instead of fireworks. Friday night brought the week's culmination, when Caleb and Ashley attended Hudson's community dance together, their first major public event as officially acknowledged couple. The dance was annual tradition held at the community center with live band and refreshments, and most of Hudson's residents attending at some point during the evening. Walking in together, Caleb felt Ashley's hand tighten slightly in his nervousness about facing entire communities simultaneously. But they'd committed to being public, and public meant showing up together at events like this. The reactions they encountered ranged across the full spectrum. Some people greeted them warmly, pleased to see them together and hoping for success. Others maintained polite distance, reserving judgment until more time proved whether this reconciliation was genuine. A few were openly cold, remembering their first marriage's public implosion and skeptical that real change was possible. But Caleb and Ashley handled it all as team. When someone made snide comment about recycling old relationships, they responded with humor and grace. When well-meaning neighbors asked intrusive questions about their plans, they answered honestly without oversharing. When friends expressed genuine support, they accepted it gratefully. Dancing together to slow song mid-evening, Caleb had revelation about how fundamentally different this relationship felt from their first marriage.
This feels completely different than before. Not more exciting or more passionate, actually less of both, but more solid. More sustainable, like we're building something that might actually last instead of just burning bright and flaming out.
Ashley rested her head against his shoulder, moving in rhythm with the music.
I feel that too. The excitement we had the first time was mostly anxiety and chemistry. This steadiness feels better. Feels like we're choosing each other with full awareness instead of just being swept along by feelings.
I'm not afraid of losing you this time, not because I'm certain we'll succeed. Nothing's certain. But because I know if we do fail, it won't be because we didn't try, or didn't communicate, or didn't do the work. We're giving this actual chance by building it right.
We're accountable now, to each other, to our families, to this community. That accountability is terrifying, but also steadying. We can't hide problems or avoid communication when everyone knows we're together and expects us to either succeed or fail publicly.
They danced through the rest of the song in comfortable silence, both of them processing what going public meant. The scrutiny was real. The pressure was real. But the accountability was also valuable. It kept them honest, kept them working, kept them communicating instead of coasting or avoiding. As the evening wound down and people began filtering out of the community center, Caleb and Ashley stood near the exit saying goodbyes. They were leaving together, openly, as couple that Hudson now recognized officially. The private relationship had become public partnership, and that transformation carried weight but also validation. Walking to Ashley's car, Caleb felt certainty settling over him that had been missing earlier. This was right. This relationship, this pacing, this intentional building, all of it felt sustainable in ways their first marriage never had.
Thank you for doing this publicly with me, for not being ashamed or hesitant about claiming our relationship in front of everyone.
I'm not ashamed, I'm proud. We're building something real, and real things don't need to hide.
Inside the community center, the television mounted near the refreshment table played evening news on mute while cleanup crew worked. The images showed maps of Alberta with alarming red zones indicating extreme fire danger across the province. Reservoir levels at historic lows, drought conditions worsening critically. Meteorologists warning about fire season starting weeks earlier than normal and lasting significantly longer. But outside in the parking lot, Caleb and Ashley were focused on more immediate realities: their relationship, their commitment, the future they were building intentionally through communication and work, and choosing each other repeatedly with full awareness. The crisis would come, the warnings were there for anyone paying attention, but tonight, in this moment, they had this: each other. Public commitment, accountability that felt steadying rather than burdensome, and hope that felt earned rather than naive. That was enough. That was everything. That concludes today's episode of Heartland. Caleb and Ashley made their relationship officially public, beginning with formal announcement to family at Fairfield dinner where they received overwhelming support and Lisa's blessing. Their mature approach to rebuilding their relationship, intentional pacing, consistent communication, learning from past failures impressed everyone who remembered the disaster of their first marriage. Facing Hudson's community in following days brought varied reactions ranging from genuine support to open skepticism to occasional hostility. But Caleb and Ashley handled all of it as team, with Ashley demonstrating remarkable growth in how she owned past failures and committed to different behavior. Midweek integration showed Ashley genuinely joining Caleb's life rather than demanding he abandon his work, and their structured conversation about future demonstrated mature planning instead of impulsive assumption. Friday night's community dance cemented their status as official couple in Hudson's eyes, and their recognition that this relationship felt fundamentally different. Less exciting but more solid, more sustainable, built on foundation rather than just passion, validated their approach. The episode ended with them leaving dance together as publicly acknowledged couple, accountable to relationship but steadied by that accountability, building something that might actually last through patient, consistent work. And in the background, television news showed increasingly urgent warnings about Alberta's critical drought and extreme fire danger, crisis approaching while Hudson continued its immediate work of rebuilding and healing. Join us next time when Ty faces question every recovering professional dreads. Is he ready for the licensing exam that will officially restore his veterinary credentials? When Amy's new client case proves more challenging than expected, when construction reaches major milestone, and when background climate warnings begin feeling less abstract as conditions visibly worsen across Alberta. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. Until next time, this is Western Flavors,